Okay. Oh, all right. There's a little preview. Okay. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you so much for joining this conference, for being a part of this from wherever you're coming from and wherever you are right now. And in a year where nobody can really get together physically, getting together like this still at this time of year, at the end of the season, is a really powerful and special tradition to continue. And I'm really glad it is happening. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here for us all to connect, probably even more than if we were all packed in to a couple of big rooms, that there's some potential here for more of us to access this and more of us to connect and spend some time together and hopefully plan for the future and really plan to integrate into each other's lives. So I'm hoping to share a lot and inspire as it relates to seed, and basically putting out a wide net here to everyone to try to get as many people who are interested to stay connected. So this presentation is kind of like a lure, and really would love to spend time together on seed, helping each other, sharing information. And as I go through this, I think it'll make sense what I'm talking about. So I'm going to give this presentation. If you guys have questions, there's a deep dive session after, but if you'd like, please put any questions, thoughts, or anything in the chat, and I'll take a peek over there in a few minutes and see if anybody has anything that we can do at the end. All right, so I'm Jason Grauer. I'm one of the farmers here at the Stone Barn Center, and I'm our crops director and the director of the seeds and genetics research that we're doing here. And my job entails managing the vegetable production with a team of incredible farmers that we collaborate together to manage the flow of this production. And my job focuses on the crop planning and the seed selection. And then within that, it is guiding and developing our genetics research and the collaborations and the partners. So being kind of the centerpiece to grab all of those collaborations and put them together. And that's a really privileged position I'm in. I really feel grateful to be able to be physically farming these varieties, but also to be diving deeper in and kind of weaving together the scientists, the chefs, the farmers, the seed savers, just the whole spectrum of humans and plants that are involved in the basket of genetics that we are trying to really understand deeply and understand from a regional perspective. So this presentation is going to give you kind of overarching principles of how we handle seed and kitchen trials on farm and in the kitchen at Stone Barns, but also there's a regionality to this specifically. And we'll dive deep into the trials of carrots and squash that I mentioned in the description. So here you can see just kind of an assortment of all the different colors and shapes and sizes. So when I talk about seeds, I just want to take a minute here to get a lay of the land and establish the why and the how, who's involved. And so the way I look at it, it's the farmers are the intermediary between the land and the consumer, right? So we grow food and we get it into people's hands. But chefs are also an intermediary. They're an intermediary between the ingredients and the consumer. So both have that overlapping responsibility. And because we know that a chef, a cook, anybody, a consumer that then takes that food and cooks it for that family, for their family, there's a responsibility there to make something taste good, make it nutritious. And so the right seed choice can play a huge role in that. It's definitely not something to take for granted. And again, I feel honored because my job is to coordinate these choices of seeds and to farm it and get the feedback back to the breeders, the seed companies, the seed savers, and to the internal team here to figure out how we're going to best move forward to either improve something or cherish it or slightly tweak it or just try to compare it to something else. And I think You know, a lot of this is we want the demand. So when we talk about supply and demand in the economic world, we really want the supply here to lead the demand. And so to dive into that a little bit more, I just want to pull up a simple slide to talk about um, crop rotation. So there's no way to talk about seed if we don't talk about the region we're in, if we don't talk about the land we're on. And so to really respect the ecology and the history of this place is an incredibly crucial and important part. So I will also preface by saying none of this is novel. None of this is like the most innovative way to farm or to select seed, but that's not really the point. The idea is that we are acknowledging that we're picking up the torch or the baton from the past, and we're moving forward with it. And we're adding our own flavor to it, literally and figuratively. So here, this idea of supply leading demand. Well, here's the game. The game is a rotation. The game is diversity. The game is that what you're looking at is a mix of diverse vegetables, flowers, herbs, grains, all for people to eat, but also for soil health, also for pollinator habitat. So all those things are considered in this rotation. So if we're going to consider all of those pieces, then the diversity has to be the framework and the restriction that we put on ourselves to create supply and to create demand. So here, what I'm trying to get at is we want these parameters because this helps with keeping the system balanced. So these parameters mean that we can't just dump a bunch of delicious beets on our CSA, our consumers, our community. We have to really engage, and we really want everyone to be super excited about every part of this. That's the real game. How do you get excited about sweet potatoes and parsnips? How do you get excited about celeriac and peas and fennel and all these little things that play a role in continuing this diversity? So that's really the key to just showing this rotation here. So we start here with the soil, with the community, with the environment. And then we go to the people. So this is a really incredible shot here that is showing the engagement that we have on site at Stone Barns and how we want seed selection to be performed. It's not just a farmer choosing what's best for the farm. It's a chef giving that input. It's the flavor feedback. It's really diving in deep and also taking really, detailed notes that can be shared. And it doesn't have to be something that is so far gone. So the style in which we're creating and receiving feedback is generally in this really important question, a simple question. Does anyone want to eat this? Does it grow well? Does anybody want to see this again? These are the kind of questions that can help us shape this idea of a regional and ecologically minded cuisine. So we want to know, does it work on the farm, but also does it work in the kitchen? And so I'd say what this photo really showcases is that collaboration is at the heart of valuable research. So you can't just research in a bubble, research that just happens and disappears. Or that one person has that information. It's not really going to do as much good as if there's collaboration here. There's more people that are beholden to this and that are playing and communicating and connecting with each other to solve the question of what we want to grow, what we want to eat as a community here. So let me give you a little background on the cycle. So here you have a look at, who's involved: Stone Barns farmers and apprentices, Blue Hill chefs. You get CSA members and visitors, and events just like YFCC will be eventually again are opportunities to get people's feedback and to engage everybody. So just checking that. Okay. So here we go. Here's the cycle. The cycle is a never-ending one. There's no singular point that we're trying to reach. It's just continuing to evolve and adjust. So this seed selection is not about finding the best anything. It's about finding the one that fits that moment and then learning for how we got to that point to learn how we'll get to the next point. So this is a specific group of people that are here, that are engaging in this work, and they will go off and do different things. They will go and open up restaurants and open up farms and join communities and become pillars of that community's food resources. And so through all that, what often happens is, people who are engaged in this work know which tomato they loved, as you can see in the photo, but they also come back and ask. And so that thread is one that doesn't break, it kind of just extends out. And that's the idea, is that this work continues to thread, the network continues to be bigger, and that we can always communicate. It doesn't have to be this one season we all work together. It's always available. The information is always there and ready for us. So here's just a little view of the tomato tasting evaluation. And I just bring this up so that you can see kind of the detail, but also the simplicity of this. The important thing is that we're really comparing and trying to understand what the results of that work really were. So here you're seeing heirloom and hybrids being compared to each other. And all these things, flavor notes, texture notes, all coming from farmers and chefs and those involved. So we talk about vegetables by their name, not the crop type. And that's something, again, we want to see that demand being led by variety conversation and not just like carrots. It's the moment for carrots. We want to talk about all those carrots and why. And the reason that's important is because not everybody has the same taste buds. Not everybody has the same connection to a vegetable, a flower, a grain. And not everybody has the same body connection to those vegetables and those foods. So diversity is really important to meet a wider audience. So that's one part. The other part that's big is that variety can really inspire in other ways. So yes, any cabbage can make good sauerkraut, or any cabbage can make sauerkraut. And probably if you're good enough, it can make good sauerkraut. But there are definitely some that make incredible sauerkraut. And that's interesting, and it's inspiring, and it's worth exploring and understanding on a deeper level. Because that could change the way somebody eats, it change the way somebody takes care of their body. So variety isn't just a seed, it's not just a brand, it's got deep biological and chemical actions flowing inside of it. And the DNA is a key to some great mysteries, and the more diversity we have, the more keys we have to unlock the mysteries and uncertainty of the future of this planet. So we don't know what's coming, we don't know what's happening with the environment, we don't know what's happening with our own, even within our community, we don't know how our taste is changing. And so we have to be prepared to evolve. And it's exciting, and it means that we can invite in new nutrition and old nutrition and a diversity of nutrition as well. So when I think about seed, I think that everything you love, when you fall in love with that variety, everything you love, all those seeds, they're either going to morph with the seed savers, with the climate, or they're going to be pulled back by a seed company, which often happens if you're buying seeds that are just available on the market. And regardless of what happens, they're going to change. And the reason these varieties disappear, whether it's business or lack of demand or lack of interest, sometimes something better even comes around. But either way, there's change always in regards to seed. And yet seed is story, seed is history. It is this connection to the past. So it's kind of this beautiful thing that you can never quite fully grasp, or you can only grasp it for even just a few moments. Even hybrids over time, because of managing two parent lines, they tend to drift a little bit. And after a number of years, that incredible hybrid will look even slightly different than it did once before. So there is no way, there are no guarantees. There's no way to hold on so tightly. And so we have to accept this lack of attachment, and we have to really accept that we want to move forward with this, accept that there is change and work with it. So here's a little bit of the how and the who. And then again, don't worry, we're going to dive into the specifics of these variety trials. But I wanted to touch on this. So here's a crew of our apprentices with plant breeder Michael Mazurek on the farm, talking about the creation of new varieties. But so who are the partners? How do we do this? So partnerships is at the key forefront. Stone Barns is definitely not a plant breeding institution. What we are doing is trying to be a conduit. So finding the right partnerships, going through lots of trial and error, which is the fun of growing out these varieties and seeing how they do in comparison to those that we love and that we know. And then it's also just staying in tune with the network of seed savers the network of seed companies, and just understanding where the trends are going and why. Because a lot of time these trends relate to really important shifts in the food system. And so we want to be able to have a voice in that, and also recognize when something is shifting away from the way that we do things, and maybe more towards a conventional or a larger scale piece. So talking about these partnerships. So just to map it out here, seed savers, public and private plant breeders. So this is the universities. Here in New York, we work a lot with Cornell University. That's our closest land grant. We also work with the University of Wisconsin. So there are others in the region that are really trying to solve this. Seed organizations like the Organic Seed Alliance and companies, networks of farmers and chefs. And so what I would say here is regional seed is not easy to come by. The reason why we do this regional work is because it doesn't totally exist. Because if it does exist, it exists in California, where all food, for so much food is being grown in this country. And so the respect for Northeastern growing is actually, it's very small. And so the seeds that we all have access to are either saved by incredible people here, or they're kind of the leftovers or something that was pushed over to us. So we work with collaborators that are actually working on regional seed, like the public institutions. But also we have to create this market. We have to create this demand, and we have to create the respect around breeding for our region. And instead of waiting for all of the institutions to come around to figuring this out, we can do it as a community of farmers and a community of seed savers, and really as a community of chefs, because we can't forget the fact that chefs have a big voice right now, that although this is such a weird moment in time, people do look to others to teach them how to cook, to teach them how to use things, and to get excited. So we have to work together to make this work. So just pause for a second to let everybody catch up with that. And then we're going to dive into this beautiful photo here. And again, if you have any questions, you want to throw anything out there, just throw them in the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on it, which slows me down a little bit. So my apologies. All right, so I love this photo. It really kind of describes what we're doing. It's the full shot of doing, I'm going to put this chat a little bit to the side. This is the full spectrum of the carrots that we're working with this year. And this is a trial that we've been doing for many years and continues to evolve. So yeah, just to preface again, we're going to get into the nitty gritty now. I don't know where everybody's interest is, so we'll dive into the nitty gritty, and then we'll come back to the broad strokes. And I'm going to try to leave a few minutes here at the end for questions that you guys have. So keep sending them through. Okay, so let's dive in. Carrots and winter squash, two of my favorite crops, two life-changing crops for me. So in looking at these carrots, this is a fall and winter carrot trial, which is different than what we did in the spring. The variety choices are different. And what we're looking at is this full spectrum of the carrot options that we have. So here we go, a little bit of a close-up. Okay, so what are we looking at? This is, let's start with Chantine, sharp, taper, broad-shouldered carrots. So you can see those, a couple of those on the left there. So I call them the cartoony carrots, and they're pretty amazing just to see how that shape forms and how much carrot is in that, even though they tend to be a little bit shorter and taper. Nance is one of the most commonly associated with flavor and sweetness and tender skin. Those Nance carrots are great for storage, and their cylindrical shape is actually really good for processing. So Nance has that blunt end, fresh market, thin skin. Imperators are next. Those are the really long ones you can see here. And I know you can't see anything for scale, but these are pretty massive carrots, which I'll get to show you in a moment. So Imperators, supposedly the most common carrot grown. These are like the cut and peel carrots, or I'm sorry, the long like carrots you get in the grocery stores. And so Imperator types have this long, slender carrot with this really long, kind of common carrot taproot looking finish. And then the last are more of the jumbo cello types, fresh markets. All right. So I wanted to break down this trial into a couple of the comparisons that we were doing. And overall, we were looking at all the carrots and saying these 11 grown in the fall. Here in our region, we plant the last week essentially of July. And we know that if we hit that mark, we can get these beautiful storage carrots right before the frosts in late October and November. And what we've learned over the years is that timing is right, but that we're also starting to explore keeping carrots in all throughout the winter with just a little bit of cover. So I want to touch on that too. So here, carrots, again, we're not drawing a line in the sand here on hybrids or open pollinated, heirloom or modern. We know we want to look for seed companies, seed savers, everyone with a strong ethic towards these really holistic approach and soil-based approach to agriculture and biological approach. So these carrots are either certified organic or they're untreated organic, untreated conventional, nothing on the conventional side or treated. So we did a comparison of these purples, and as expected, I guess you could see that these black nebulas, I mean, first of all, the color is just unbelievably this deep, dark purple. And versus the deep purple carrot, which is a new one from Bayo Seeds over on the right. You can see the carrot size, definitely a little bit bigger with the black nebula than the deep purple, but that uniformity and consistency and more slender shape of the deep purple on the bottom right really lends itself well to bunching. Whereas the black nebula is definitely more of a exploratory carrot. So what we've been saying, so in growing this, we found that the flavor is phenomenal, super sweet, beautiful, totally amazing expression of color inside this carrot too. Black nebula is definitely the right name for it. And this is definitely a call back to the Middle Eastern heritage that carrots have, and the purple, which is one of the earlier colors historically for carrots to really be what most dominated carrots early on. And you can see on this, there's a lot of extra root hairs. So they're not the easiest to market, but there is something beautiful and there is something delicious about them. And then on top of that, they have this unbelievable ability to dye your hands, your soup stocks, your carrots, your frosting, this deep purple that just doesn't go away. So really an interesting take in the culinary side, but also for that arts and ecology side of things where, you know, using plant dyes, who knew maybe carrots could be a good one in there too. So we really like this for the flavor, but I'd say as a production carrot, where it would be interesting is in taking this mass amount of diversity and starting to do seed saving and selection for those that best suit our needs. So we would probably do something more like the carrot on the left here. Here's the deep purple in a close-up, and just a really amazing carrot, great taste, great crunch. And both of these actually different cold tolerance. So we found that the deep purple can really survive deeper into the cold than the black nebula. And I think some of those all over the place characteristics of the black nebula are making it so that there's some cracks inside, and those cracks end up freezing and we lose some of the carrots. So as far as flavor, black nebula stands out, but as far as consistency, storability, and the ability to survive a deeper cold into freezing temperatures, deep purple is really standing out there. All right, so now we move on to the Chantine trial. And just pulling up this note. So this came out of an interesting thing, and I know it's not really something that everybody would be thinking about, but because we have a lot of chefs on the line, I think it's an important one to bring up. So this exploration of these more larger, more cartoony looking, but also meatier carrots came out of this project this dish that Blue Hill was creating, which was a steak carrot, where they were taking, instead of using meat as the center of a plate, it was taking the vegetable and putting that at the center. And with tons of carrots in storage, we started to sort an unbelievable amount. And so we started to say, well, instead of sorting for these larger, meatier carrots that could be used, how could we find varieties that really grew to the specifications that we were looking for? And we started to look into Chantines. which like Nantes, they have a lot of carrot to them versus the imperators that tend to taper so much that if you start to cook it, that bottom portion, that tapered part kind of fades away. So we started to look at this for the steak carrots, but what we found is an incredible diversity, delicious varieties, and a whole spectrum of the carrot world that is really interesting to look into. So here again, we have a hybrid versus OP. So on the left, you have Kupar, which is another Bayo seeds variety. Bayo is a Dutch, family-owned Dutch seed company that deals with some of the best organic seed production in the world. A really thoughtful company, as well as doing larger scale production. And New Kuroda is an improvement on an heirloom variety, a Japanese heirloom, the Kuroda carrot. And we learned about this from a fellow farmer in St. Louis. So shout out to Bolin Farms. And so that kind of really sums it up, this connection between farmers to farmers, seed companies to farmers, and really exploring this. So both are really delicious, but I would say the size and the shape and the consistency of the Kupar was something really amazing to see. No cracks, whereas Kuroda had some cracks, but the flavor and the size shape of both of these is really phenomenal. These are two of our favorites for sure. I guess we'll move on as time allows. Here's another big trial that we were doing, a storage Nantes trial. And again, all these are broken up into parts, but we were comparing everything as well. What are the most delicious ones? What are the ones that grow best for us? This trial has been going on for a few years, and at other young farmers conferences, we even did some taste tests all together out in the field. And this is where I just want to, tie back to this idea of how are we trialing here in the Northeast, here in New York? Well, we're pushing the limits, being brought on by this interest in exploring flavor coming from the chefs, the partnership, chefs and farmers and breeders. We're exploring these storage carrots, not just storage in our cooler, but storage in the field, growing throughout the winter into the coldest days that we have. So these are going to be compared all the way through February and maybe even into early March if there's no bolting. Right now, their ground is frozen and both of these varieties look phenomenal. We have them covered. They are really delicious. I have to say, Dulcinea keeps winning on our flavor comparisons, which we love. This is an open pollinated variety. It's seed that's savable, whereas Bolero is a hybrid. And it's not savable, owned by a French company. And so we're really finding them both serve a purpose, but Dulcinea is becoming one of our favorites and one of the favorites of the kitchen too. And I just want to give a shout out to the collaboration here. So Dulcinea is a partnership between breeders, farmers, and seed company. So the University of Wisconsin, Erwin Goldman's lab, working with his former student, Claire Luby, working with Fruition Seeds, and the farm that collaborated with them was Remembrance Farm. So it's an amazing thing to see what, when you bring different expertise together, how you can get to a result. So we really love those carrots. It's a great one. Here is the last of the carrot trials to point out is just an assortment of colorful and bunching. We thought they were good. We're still struggling to find a red carrot that we think has great flavor. The slenderness, the size, and the growth habit of Red Sun was great. It's kind of the best of what we've seen. But as far as flavor, we're still sticking with the orange carrots. So Norway was a good one there. And then I would just say the last part is the Istanbul Imperator type. Our crew has never seen a carrot grow so beautifully with so few cracks, so few blemishes. It really just seemed to love our soil. And I think that's what makes this so exciting and why we trial is it's not knowing that you love this carrot or you love this. It's doing the work to see. And so obviously this is year one. We won't get too excited, but unbelievable to see how well these grew in our soil. So it's something that really is giving us a hint to explore more of these imperators and explore Istanbul in our rotation flowing throughout. All right, so just taking a look here if anybody had any specific questions. Okay. And okay, we're going to move on to winter squash. I just want to jump into that question. So are we covering carrots with mulch? Yes. So what we're doing is we're growing the carrots late in July, so we get full coverage by the first frost, meaning the carrots have sized up and the carrot tops are really strong and really vibrant. They provide an extra layer of cover so that we don't have to actually put tunnels over the beds. So instead of putting tunnels, we'll just take out remay, long pieces of poly UV penetrable fabric. Agribon or remay is a good option. You can do other materials also, but something where the light can still get in, that it can still breathe, but that there is a little bit of coverage, because sometimes all you need is like 5 or 10 degrees of a microclimate to keep you above freezing. So obviously if you're way further north, this might not work as well. But for us, we take a triple layer of remay and a double or triple, and we throw it over the top and put down sandbags and keep the beds covered. And we leave the tops on. Oftentimes, if you cut the tops, they could end up freezing. And once you get a deep freeze and the carrot cracks, it won't store. And if it bursts the cell walls, the flavor all disappears too. So having this cover really makes things great. Occasionally on the coldest of cold days, we'll notice that the carrots at the front of that remay cover may be lost, but it's like 5 or 10 carrots, whereas we have hundreds and hundreds in the middle sections that are still good. So we don't use mulch because we know rodents and things can get in there. The nice thing about the remay is you can take it off and you can put it back on. So that's been a really key thing there. Okay, so we're gonna do we'll do a little bit more Q&A. I'm gonna try to run through winter squash in just about 3 to 5 minutes, so you guys can just get a lay of the land here. So here's the full assortment. Same kind of thing that's going on with winter squash. We're looking at hybrids, open pollinated. We're looking at old varieties and new varieties, and we're trying to find out the best for us. And we don't want one, we want many. We want to keep that diversity going. So here, a trial that Johnny's Johnny Selected Seeds has been working with us on really incredible varieties of coral colored kabochas. These are some of the most interesting squash I've ever tasted. So hopefully those will be coming out soon. And in the exploration, we found some of the most melon-like flavors, really nice size, kind of small, medium size. And then finally, in the bottom left corner, the one that's not labeled is a super long storage kabocha. And this is one that can actually last from harvest in September all the way through March the next year. So that's what we're exploring. To give you just a little background again on the winter squash trial, we're looking for what I think it's super fun is we're looking to slot our sales. So we have these, excuse me one second. We have these winter squash slotted. So we harvest all on the same day, but then when they're ready is all month to month. So these blue kabochas are all ready in mid-November. Some of the orange are ready in October. And then this last pink one on the bottom left is ready in anywhere from like February to March. And the flavors do change. So this is the thing, is figuring out which varieties you want to hold on to and which ones you want to sell. So that's what we're exploring. Here, just to show you this comparison, you can see a couple of numbered varieties on the top right, and Marine Gray and Sweet Mama on the bottom. Those are more standard and heirloom varieties. And we're noticing some real differences in yield and flavor. And so trying to get an assortment there, and storability. This is kind of called the butternut spectrum, looking at the other side of winter squash. And here from, everything from large Italian heirlooms to small, brand new hybrid or open pollinated, but very modern, tiny butternut squashes. And I'll say across the board here, you have incredible flavor. Just to touch on breeding as a last point. Well, here you can see Robin's Kogi nut, a row 7 variety that's come out in the last few years, bred by Michael Mazurek at Cornell. Learning about that through a New York public breeder and understanding this combination of old and new varieties in breeding is really an amazing thing to create hybrids. So we're looking at all these heirloom traits and all these old traits to see which ones have the best flavors and the most unique shapes and colors and whatever could really be important to bring forward. And then we're crossbreeding it with other squash that we know we have traits that we like natural resilience and flavor and size. So we do some breeding on the farm as well. And on-farm hybrids are a really simple way for any production farm to get involved in breeding, because this way you're making a simple cross of two things that you like. And then the following year you can grow a few plants of that and you're getting a hybrid. It's consistent and you can bring it in and share it with the community and decide if it's a worthy project of continuing on with. Self-pollinating crops are great too. So we work a lot with things like peas and some of these selfing brassicas as a way to use our eyes and the engagement of others in our food community, like the chefs, like the visitors, so that we can all select together. So if you grow out an assortment that you're just selecting from, that is breeding. And so we've been able to bring people in and just flag and select and save the seed from it. So you kind of choose how, easy and hard you want to make it. All right, so we pushed through there. The last slide is just to touch on expanding your reach. If you have this interest, reach out to me, reach out to Stone Barns, get involved, locating grants that are already happening, reaching out to cooperative extension, reaching out to university breeders. Again, we're a resource here to share as much information as possible with you guys, whoever's interested in getting involved. And just don't be afraid of making that phone call, sending that email, reaching out to a seed company and literally asking them to be a part of trials. They want farmer feedback. Seed is very inexpensive to a lot of these companies, but the feedback and the community engagement is priceless. So it's worth reaching out to even get involved in one. Okay, so we're going to switch over to questions. Oh, and just a shout out, this year is the NOFA New York Organic Seed Growers Conference, and next year is again the Organic Seed Alliance's Organic Seed Growers Conference. So if you're interested in growing seed and the tools, those are two great conferences to look at. So again, NOFA New York Seed Conference this year in January. It looks like they have an awesome lineup. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some questions, and hopefully I'll see many of you in the deep dive in a little bit. Okay, going back up. Oh. As far as indigenous seed saving organizations, we're always looking for partnerships and really trying to connect with folks on that. So we'd really like to hear more about some of those organizations that are out there. I know Seed Shed is a great one doing that around here, and there's always the Native Seed Search, an organization not quite in this region, doing that work too. Companies in Colorado, I have to think on that. So there's definitely organizations in Colorado working with seed. Yeah, getting seeds international is tough. I see there's a question here about going to Mexico with seed. That's a tougher one, but there are ways to do it. You just have to get the right permits. Oftentimes it's just about reaching out to the USDA office here, which isn't impossible. As far as the carrot trials, do you do trials on optimal flavor and grow time? Yes, flavor is at the forefront of these conversations, and just so much of the time, a lot of the varieties that we love end up disappearing. So flavor is a really important one to keep at the forefront as we do these trials, because the replacements don't often meet the expectations of the ones of the past. Grow time, we're not super concerned. We find that we have a good window for growing carrots. Some are a little bit faster than others, but we like to, it also depends on the sizes and that they get to at a certain point. So we plant all our carrots at the same time in, let's say, the late summer, but we know that we have more slender carrots that are perfect to pick in September and October, and others like the larger nonce that we keep all the way through the winter. Oh, pot planting. It's tough because you don't have the geothermal energy of the ground to help you out there. I'd say, you know, if you could, if you're just doing it outside, it's kind of like one of those things where you could bring the pots inside when it's really going to get super cold and just be moving them in and out. For squash tastings, do we do them raw or use controlled cook? A little bit of both. Most of this is being done cooked. It's just about roasting them and really not trying to make the perfect dish, but really trying to explore the flavor. So oftentimes, like, you could use a little bit of salt and a little bit of oil, because you also want to make sure it's, but a neutral oil. You want to make sure it's replicating an eating experience, but you don't want to add too much flavor right off the bat when you're comparing them. So someone asked, how long does the pipeline at Stone Barns take from trial to integration into growing for production? How many growing seasons do you go through for each choice? Great question. It depends. I mean, we have some that we've been running as long as I've been here for the last 6 or 7 years, and some that, you know, in 1 year we'll find that it's effective. I would bring up that we're not always taking trials, and this is where it's really accessible. We're not always taking trials that are like so far from being released or so far from being, ready. Like, we're working with breeders, working with seed companies to maybe just give something the final okay before it goes out there, as many farmers do. So we're just one of the farms that does that. So there's definitely no number I could put on that. Breeding is obviously very different. It's often, if you're looking to create a hybrid, you can figure that out in 1 year, which means in about 2, you could have a variety. But if you're looking for something open pollinated, it could take you years, probably 6 or 7, to really dial that in. Definitely follow on socials. I'm taking a big break this year, but that's where I make sure to post all the projects and trials that we're working on, and try to keep the conversation going. So if that's a good avenue, please keep following there. Okay, I love this question. How do you balance sampling new varieties while remaining on track with your production goals and labor restraints? You got to work within your means, but percentages is important. So never grow something new, even if it's something new and established in the market. You want to try to avoid growing something new in its entirety. You want to have it be a percentage of your crop. So if you're growing, 100 feet of carrots, grow 5 or 10 feet of the new variety. Sometimes you're going to have to eat that, but oftentimes if you just plan ahead, so we plan, obviously in our privileged position, we have chefs right here on the farm. We can plan with them to engage and explore this together. But honestly, with the average rate of loss of a bed, if you plant 5 or 10 feet, it's not going to be that much. The information is going to be more valuable. And that could be something that maybe your crew eats together as a way to, you can put it on your budget for bringing the team together. It's again, you want to keep the percentage small until you find out that there's an interest in something. That's an important one. Is Stone Barns involved in grain breeding projects? Yes, we are. We're doing as much grain trials as we are vegetable trials as far as percentage goes. So it's really hard to find good, delicious varieties for, I think I might lose you guys here, but it's hard to find good grain varieties for the Northeast that actually have good flavor. So we've been working exploring the public universities that are out there doing this work in the Midwest, a little bit in the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest. And do we test seeds in different soil types or amendments? Not a little bit, but that's not the main focus. I think what we're trying to do is really, especially with a crop rotation, already there's a variability there that we can't control for. So we try to keep our system as controlled as possible from that perspective. So we don't try to imbalance soils in any way or try new things in particular, but we do rotate. And so we're always moving to different parts of the farm. All right. So thank you all for taking a moment to listen to this. It's strange when you can't really be engaging with everybody. So I hope that's been of some interest. Oh, I see some more questions here. Not sure when we're going to get kicked off here, but I hope those that are going to be in the deep dive, that I'll see you guys over there. And again, thanks for everybody's interest and dedication to this work, and even just learning a little bit about what we're doing. So I really appreciate that, and look forward to speaking with you guys again. Here's my email address. Just reach out and connect. We are definitely here for you. All right. Thanks a lot.